Call the March 2nd, 2021 regular meeting of council to order. I will give the invocation this evening. Heavenly Father, we thank thee for this day. Help us to use good judgment for the business in hand and guide us in wisdom with a continuing sense of truth and fairness for the community we represent. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Julie, please call the roll.
Mr. Landig.
Here.
Mr. Martin.
Here.
Mr. Blake.
Here.
Mr. Donovan.
Here.
Mrs. Dowling. Here. Mr. Kirchner. Here. Mr. Krieger.
Here. Good evening. I want to welcome the public to the City Council virtual public meeting. If you are attending through the published WebEx link, you will notice a window open on the bottom right-hand side of the screen entitled Q&A. This window will have opened 5 minutes prior to the start of the meeting and will remain open for 10 minutes after the meeting begins for a total of 15 minutes. During that time, if you wish to address council at a later point in this meeting, please type your name, address, and the topic you wish to speak about. This is the only means for you to schedule your participation since the public cannot physically attend in person at this time. At the appropriate time during the meeting, I will recognize you and you will be unmuted. You will be permitted to make comments to council on the topic you requested to speak about. If you wish to comment on an item on the agenda, you will be recognized when that item appears on the agenda. All other comments unrelated to the agenda will be heard near the end of the meeting during the persons before council portion of the agenda. Please make your speaking request at this time, and thank you for your virtual participation. Approval of minutes. Council, you received the minutes of the February 2nd, 2021 regular meeting.
Move to approve.
Second.
Julie, please call the roll.
Mr. Landig.
Yes.
Mr. Martin.
Yes.
Mr. Blake.
Yes.
Mr. Donovan.
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling. Yes. Mr. Kirchner.
Yes.
Mr. Krieger.
Yes.
The minutes of the February 2nd, 2021 regular meeting have been approved. Public hearings, we have none. Tabled legislation, we have none. New legislation, ordinance number 21-0-018.
An ordinance to authorize revisions to appropriations and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Flipiak.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Malinowski, please.
Thank you, Mr. Filipiak. Members of council, this ordinance does two things, as noted in the staff report. Firstly, it authorizes a permanent cash transfer in the amount of $30,000 from the city's general fund into the state grant fund. This was related to the city's share of the relatively new playground at Civic Center location. And then secondly, there are 4 appropriation revisions, all of which are non-general fund accounts, and their increases as noted in the staff. I would recommend approval. Thank you.
Council, what is your pleasure?
Move to suspend.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Landig.
Yes.
Mr. Martin.
Yes.
Mr. Blake.
Yes.
Mr. Donovan.
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling. Yes. Mr. Kirchner.
Yes.
Mr. Krieger.
Yes.
Move to approve.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Landig.
Yes.
Mr. Martin.
Yes.
Mr. Blake.
Yes.
Mr. Donovan.
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling. Yes. Mr. Kirchner.
Yes.
Mr. Krieger.
Yes.
Ordinance number 21-0-018 has been approved. Ordinance number 21-0-019.
An ordinance amending the previously approved Newell Creek Development Plan to permit the additional use of the conference and meeting center located at 8200 Norton Parkway for food service open to the general public.
Mr. Flipiak.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just happy to say that the law department, the planning department, and our whole administration worked well with the planning commission to come up with what we think is a very nice accommodation. I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Mitchell to talk about the change, but I don't know if Mr. Zeman wanted to say anything about the Newell Creek development plan and uniqueness of it from a planning perspective.
No, I suspect council's pretty well aware of. There's some specific questions about the amendment. I'm happy to answer those.
Ms. Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Flipiak and members of council. The applicant is requesting to amend the Newell Creek Development Plan in order for the existing event center located at 8200 Norton Parkway to be rebranded and allow for a more vibrant cafe-style atmosphere open to the public. As proposed, the facility would continue to cater to private parties, meetings, conferences, and special events. And the applicant would like to install kitchen-related equipment in the existing food prep area. The applicant has indicated that the cafe-style atmosphere is not intended to be a full-service restaurant, but they do plan to make use of the existing patio at the rear of the building for outdoor dining and events. And just by way of background, in 2014, when the development plan was amended to allow for the Noah's Event Center, it was conditioned that the facility not be open to the general public except for private parties, conferences, and special events. The Planning Commission approval also restricted ancillary uses within the facility. The specific 2014 amendment is outlined in your staff report. Since that time and the approval of Noah's and the construction of it, there's been many changes along the corridor that has changed the built environment 7 years later. The clinic is expected to build a hospital on the east end of Norton Parkway. And with these new and proposed developments along Norton Parkway, the administration offers that this concept for 8200 is well suited to service both surrounding businesses and the community. After the proposal was tabled at the Planning Commission's January 21st meeting, the Commission met on February 11th and worked with the applicant to revise the 2014 amendment language to best suit the proposed concept while still ensuring it was consistent with the purpose and intent of the previously approved plan. The Commission recommended approval of the amendment to the plan by a vote of 6-0 with the modified conditions that are outlined in your staff report and the ordinance for your consideration.
Council,
Move to suspend.
Second.
please call a roll.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Donovan? Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Move to approve.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Ordinance number 21-0-019 has been approved. Ordinance number 21-0-020.
An ordinance amending the Ridgewood Green Subdivision Development Plan Phase 2, specifically related to stormwater management infrastructure and relocation of open space recreational area and amenities.
Mr. Flippia.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ms. Mitchell, please.
Thank you, Mr. Flipiak. The applicant is requesting to amend, again, the approved development plan for Phase 2 of the Ridgewood Green subdivision. This was approved back in 2019 by way of the final plat, Phases 1 and 2. The original approved development plan included the existing golf course ponds as part of the overall stormwater management system for the project. The applicant received approval for Phase 1 improvements from the city, the Ohio EPA, and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and the construction of dwellings moved forward. However, when they sought the approval for Phase 2, the Ohio EPA determined that the ponds are considered jurisdiction of the state rather than the U.S. Army Corps. The developer received a notice of violation from the Ohio EPA and were not permitted to use the existing ponds as part of the future stormwater of Phase 2. Due to this determination, the developer needs to construct another detention basin, which will require the relocation of several easements and recreational amenities within the development. At the January 21st, 2021 Planning Commission meeting, the members of the commission expressed concern with regard to the loss of usable open space with the creation of the new stormwater basin. And so the item was tabled to allow for further revisions to the plan. The plan was brought back to the commission in February 11th, 2021, and the developer submitted a revised plan, which includes a recreation play area that's the size of 75 by 125 feet on the west side of the development next to the Willoughby Corporation line. This play area includes relocated picnic tables and benches, and the original walking path within this area was reconfigured to accommodate this proposed play area. An alternate location for the play area was proposed underneath the high-tension power lines, but the commission preferred the first location. Basically, in sum, the open space as originally proposed remains intact. It's proposed at 45% of the development. where under the RVG regulations, 15% of open space is required. And in actuality, after the revisions were made and the detention area was modified, the detention area actually decreased from the original plan, going from 2.48 acres to 2.35 acres within the amended plan proposed. It should also be noted that the conditions made part of City Council's approval under ordinance number 19-0-019 for final subdivision plat phases 1 and 2 of Ridgewood Greens will be met with the changes still proposed. With all of this in mind, at the Planning Commission meeting on February 11th, the Planning Commission recommended approval of the proposed amendments by a vote of 6-0. That's all.
Council,
Move to suspend.
Second.
please call the roll.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Move to approve.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Ordinance number 21-0-020 has been approved. Resolution number 21-R-103.
A resolution authorizing the city manager to submit a substantial amendment to the fiscal year 2019 Community Development Block Grant Annual Action Plan using CBDG-CV funds for the Small Business Employee Retention Program and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Flippia.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of council. Council, the city received a second allocation of additional CDBG dollars through the CARES Act. We received this funding just under $200,000, and we looked at some different uses of this early on. We thought we would reserve some of it for use toward the vaccination effort. Isn't likely that we'll need that because most of what we've expended and most county agencies have expended will be reimbursed through FEMA, or we expect at least 75% of that. Similar to how we used the first allocation, and council remember, we received just under 80,000 for an initial additional CDBG allocation through CARES Act funding, which we used for the small business grant program early on. 76 small businesses had taken advantage of that program. What we're proposing to do with this allocation of CDBG money is to allocate it toward a second round of small business granting. This would be up to $1,000. Actually, we're proposing it at $1,000. The requirement with respect to the grant program, the CDBG program, would require us to employ at least one or maintain the employment for at least a year of one full-time position in this low to moderate income area, and that will be defined by this. The Economic Development Department in my office is working on some additional grant requirements to further define how we would allocate this. But if we allocate all of it, we could help up to 200 small businesses. We're calling it the Employee Retention Program. You'll see in the council member memo, it's also kind of colloquially referred to as a fill the gap program. And the idea behind this is to try to help our small businesses get to survive, quite frankly, until such time as we can open up and the vaccination effort allows some of these business restrictions to be taken off of their shoulders. Mr. Malachek, did you want to say a few words about what you have seen as the impact of small business in the community?
Well, we obviously have hundreds of small businesses in the community, and I think there's a vast majority of them, obviously, that have been negatively affected, particularly in our retail sector, which is significant, our restaurant sector, which is significant, also with over 170 restaurants that are out there. And just general small businesses that supply services, some that had to shut down for weeks during the pandemic that we were able to help out with in our restart program. So I think there's going to be plenty of demand and requests for this, and we are sitting down this week to talk about protocol and procedures, so we should have it up and running very soon.
So what you're doing this evening, council, is actually amending the annual action plan. this will go to a public hearing and for public comment. And then from there, we will fill in the details of that grant program. Certainly solicit any input that council would have on those particular details. And those will be published and placed into the clerk of council's office. And then our public information department, as well as the economic development department, will start reaching out to our local businesses and see if we can do some good out there.
Council, what is your pleasure?
Move to suspend.
Second.
Julie, please call the roll.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Move to approve.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling? Yes. Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Resolution number 21-R-103 has been adopted, excuse me. Second reading, we have none. Third reading, none. Manager's report. Mr. Flipiak.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to remind our residents to help keep our city beautiful by joining the annual Great American Cleanup that runs from March 20th through June 20th. This program is designed to encourage communities to reduce litter, reuse materials, promote recycling, and renew our public spaces. It's a great opportunity for volunteers of all ages to experience the impact that they can make directly on their community. And it's very easy to help out. The time, location, and date of your cleanup is simply up to you. And we see a lot of high school groups and conservation groups doing their public service requirements under this program. So once your group has decided what works best, simply call us to register at cityofmentor.com/news, where you can also learn more about the program. The City of Mentor's single-family housing rehab program is up and running for this year. It's designed to help assist qualified low to moderate income Mentor residents who have eligible repairs made to their owner-occupied residential property and to upgrade their living conditions. Again, it's up to $10,000 per property, and it's available for those who qualify. Qualifying improvements would generally be those that would bring the structure into greater compliance with local codes and can include handicap accessibility improvements, painting, electrical, roof foundation, furnace repairs, storm drainage work, as we have highlighted in the past, and many more. The program is administered by the Western Reserve Community Development Corporation for our city, and additional information can be found on our website and at Western Reserve, and their number is posted on our website as well. Unfortunately, identity theft is a widespread national challenge right now, and Mentor is certainly not immune from that. Recently, we've had a number of residents and many of our own employees actually who have had their identities used to file fraudulent unemployment claims in both the traditional unemployment and under the pandemic unemployment assistance programs. In many cases, individuals become aware of their identity, that their identity was compromised when they actually receive a 1099-G form indicating that they have taxes due for the benefits that they've received. So those who believe that their identity has been compromised and used to file a fraudulent unemployment claim should report identity theft to the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services at www.unemployment.ohio.gov. And we've had a number of claims also reported to our local police department as well. The 2021 tax season is upon us, and the deadline for filing Mentor municipal tax forms or exemption forms is Thursday, April 15th, 2021. We remind residents that the RETA office located in our building here at the Municipal Center remains closed due to the pandemic. If you would like RETA to prepare your tax return, you simply print the individual municipal tax drop-off sheet, which is available online on their website, and attach it to your tax documents to it and drop it off at select RETA locations, including our lobby. So there is a drop-off box in our lobby. Just as an aside, I will tell you that myself and a number of the Lake County mayors and managers have been pushing RETA pretty hard to try to find out when they would be opening up this office for in-person assistance. They're not prepared to do that. Remind them that when they fail to do that, Mr. Malinowski's team is then responsible for trying to provide that assistance. So we're hoping that they will find a way, at least to do some in-person, at least if by appointment, which we have recommended to them. So we'll keep you council updated on that as well. I've also heard that there's a good chance that the federal tax deadline may be pushed this year. There's some talk about that. If that happens, then we have traditionally, I'm sure we could as well this year, push our deadline as well. Just a reminder to our residents as well, the Lake County EMA has updated the reverse 911 emergency notification system. Phone numbers from the old system were automatically migrated, but now is a great time to confirm that you are in the system in case your number has changed. Registration for that program takes less than 60 seconds. And if you're interested, you can visit www.reverse911signup.info. And finally, our Public Works Department reminds our residents that an annual yard waste collection program begins Monday, April 5th. As always, which isn't going to be too far away with the nice weather we've been having. And finally, Council, we have a few new businesses in town that we want to recognize. The Mentor Brewing Company, which is the formerly Brew Mentor, is now doing business at 9528 Diamond Center. And some members of the council were able to attend that ribbon cutting, and that went very, very nice facility that they've redone and expanded. American Family Care, Urgent Care at 9110 Mentor Avenue. Sonny's Diamond Shine, LLC at 9050 Tyler Boulevard. And Breeze Beauty Bar at 4689 Corduroy Road, which also had a ribbon cutting just last week. So we want to thank them for their investment in our community, and we wish them great success. That's all.
Thank you. Clerk's correspondence, Julie.
Council is in receipt of a liquor permit transfer from 8484 Mentor Avenue, LTD DBA Safe Crackers, to Lakeshore Eatery, Inc., DBA 7272 Grill at 7272 Lakeshore Boulevard. That's all.
Commission committee reports, meeting minutes, Board of Building and Zoning Appeals, January 12th, 2021. Tree Commission, January 13th, 2021. Municipal Planning Commission, January 21, 2021. Old business.
Mr. President,
Mr. Blake.
can I have a question for you? Do you have any sense when we can start opening our public meetings again? Have people in socially distanced?
I don't have a specific answer for you on that, Councilman. There is a lot of talk about that right now, and I know that a number of communities are considering that sooner rather than later. We have generally tried to take our cue from what we've seen from our own state legislature.
Mm-hmm.
They have not opened their public meetings up yet. I suspect that will certainly depend on just how well we do with the vaccine and how those numbers continue to go. And of course, it's up to council's prerogative on that. I think obviously our county is moving in a great direction, and vaccine distribution is really going to start to kick up. I can tell you that we'll probably start to see 2 to 3 times as much of the vaccine distributed into the county in the coming weeks here, and that's only expected to ramp up with some news on the J&J and some of the other added production with the Pfizer vaccine in particular. Before we closed down, we did limit the number of seats in here to provide social distancing. We recently talked about how we might proceed forward. I think we would do it with the same limitations that allow for the proper distancing in this chamber. So I would say pretty soon.
Okay, good. Forward to it.
To Councilman Blake's point, I think we've seen that participation is not what it was when we're through the WebEx. So it would behoove, and it's dampened public participation. So it would be a good thing to get back to normal. New business.
Mr. President, I'd ask that council defer making nominations this evening for our BZA to give us a little bit more time to review.
A second. We need one.
That's fine. Thank you. We will. Any other new business? Persons before council? I see none. Thank you, Dan. There are none.
Mr. President, if there's no new business or other business at hand, I would move to adjourn.
Second.
Meeting is adjourned.